Chapter 461, A Traumatic Experience. Even the great god was astonished. Chen Guo turned her head towards Yi Shu's screen and saw the wilderness escort's face staring back. The wilderness escort had been stuffed in, but he wasn't able to go completely through the dog hole because sparse fragrance had blocked his path. Falling flower palms blow away effect wasn't strong enough against the boss, so it just stopped there, unable to move any further. As a result, the wilderness escort had half of his body stuck in the hole. Chen Guo could see the wilderness escort twisting and turning strangely, and then the sounds of rapid gunfire. What is he doing? Chen Guo stared. Yi Shu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He's trying to get up, but he's stuck in the hole. Does this boss know what that even means? You don't know this? Chen Guo asked back. How would I know? Yi Shu was helpless. He knew some information on the wilderness escort, but he didn't know about this sort of specific data, similar to how he didn't know of the existence of the dog hole. They're probably going to try and push the boss in. The boss isn't very smart, right? Chen Guo said. Or maybe, Yi Shu said. Could they want the boss to stay stuck there? Just as Chen Guo finished saying this, the sounds of gunfire echoed again. He's still trying to get up. Yi Shu was helpless. When the wilderness escort got up, it would randomly fire and also let out a shockwave. Now that it was stuck in the hole, it couldn't get up, but the random firing could still be done. However, the escort couldn't move his arm in the hole, so it could only fire at his own feet. Someone's running this way. At this moment, the two players responsible for observing the outside situation nervously reported. There's nothing we can do. Log off, sparse fragrance cried. Don't be in such a hurry. Wait here, Yi Shu said, while having Lord Grimm let out a falling flower palm. With a bang, the wilderness escort was pushed out. What are you doing? Sparse fragrance shouted. This would undoubtedly expose them. Wait for me here. Right as Yi Shu said this, the others watched as Lord Grimm slipped out from the hole. They stared dumbly for a moment, before suddenly realizing that he had slid out using a sharpshooter skill. After failing to send the wilderness escort into the dog hole 9 times, they accidentally got it in on the next try. It made Ice of Dawn feel like God was playing with them. With the other guilds already there, sending the wilderness escort into the hole was completely pointless. It was just that the players had done the same set of movements so many times that they inadvertently did it. The battle mage looked as if he were about to make a big gamble when he shot out the palm. Who would have thought that this strike would actually send the wilderness escort into the hole? It hadn't gone all the way through, but no one thought much of it. After all, this had only been done accidentally. The battle mage hadn't been very careful with his move and hadn't paid attention to his position. As a result, even though the angle had been extremely accurate, the distance wasn't optimal, so it made sense it would only stop halfway. Following afterwards, the wilderness escort fired his gun from the hole directly towards the players outside. Everyone outside and inside had been amazed at this strange scene. Just when everyone was astonished at this sight, the wilderness escort fired shots a second time, trying to get up, and then suddenly slipped out. Even if the boss had been coded to be able to crawl out from the hole, it should be able to slid out so perfectly, right? There are people inside, someone immediately shouted. Just as someone was about to go run inside and check, there was a whoosh, and sure enough, someone slipped out from the dog hole. That someone got up smoothly and shouted, "Everyone, don't panic. It's me. It's me. It's me. It's me," was quite an arrogant thing to say. It was as if everyone should recognize him. However, no one felt that he was arrogant once they saw the ID on top of his head. Everyone was surprised. It's him. Lord Grimm. In recent times, he was an extremely popular character. Rumors even said that he was God Yi Chu. The debate on whether or not he really was him was still going on. Blue Brook Guild's Ice of Dawn and Excellent Dynasty's Dreamland had all sorts of feelings arise. They had finally met in the heavenly domain. These two had similar thoughts. Ice of Dawn once gone with Changing Spring as well as the other great experts of Blue Brook Guild to try and save the situation in the 10th server. He could be considered as someone who had competed with Yi Shu before, but had lost. They had practiced bitterly in order to set a dungeon record, but their efforts had been pointless. When the great experts returned to the heavenly domain, they came back dejected and depressed. At that time, they had even felt somewhat grateful for Poplar Beach. When Poplar Beach challenged Lord Grimm, he became a huge focus in the guild. The guild leader had personally led experts to support him, but he returned in embarrassment. After that, they quickly found out that Lord Grimm was actually Yi Chu. This information had been personally confirmed by Blue River and others. Even though right now, the media were obfuscating it, they had a hard time doubting it. From a psychological perspective, if he really was God Yi Chu, then that would be great. From that point onwards, they knew that even though they had avoided competing with him in the 10th server, how could a person like God Yi Chu not make any movements in the heavenly domain? Especially after the Thousand Waves Lake campaign. Ice of Dawn hadn't participated in that battle, but Changing Spring had personally led the troops. Ice of Dawn was well aware of his own status. From then on, the resistance towards Lord Grimm in the 10th server had disappeared. They began preparing for the arrival of the god in the heavenly domain. At that time, they had analyzed as an unspecialized, he could only come at level 50. They would have a 20 level advantage and a huge numbers advantage as well. Defeating him wouldn't be a problem. But then, when Lord Grimm actually arrived, Changing Spring gave the order to sit and watch. Changing Spring had said that there wouldn't be any pressure, but when he actually came, they were told to sit and watch. Ice of Dawn didn't look down on this order. He even felt a sense of relief. It was true that with a numbers advantage and a 20 level advantage, even if he was a god and an unspecialized, taking him down wouldn't be a problem. Ice of Dawn had felt this was true at that time as well. However, when Lord Grimm actually arrived, Changing Spring's orders weren't wrong either. The first order was a fight. The second order was to avoid first. These two completely contradictory plans were both very reasonable. In reality, his interactions with Lord Grimm were very shallow. He had only lost once in that dungeon record competition. He wasn't like Blue River, who had to toss and turn with Lord Grimm the whole time. However, that single loss had left a huge shadow in Ice of Dawn's heart. Because only they knew how hard they had worked for that low-level dungeon record. Limit. Even though it was a low-level dungeon, they had done it to their limit. Their limit had been completely broken without any effort. The sense of defeat in that instant was something outsiders wouldn't be able to understand. This was where his trauma came from. Lord Grimm's next actions hadn't been personally experienced by Ice of Dawn, but Ice of Dawn had paid attention to them. He had even noticed Blue River's wavering. Ice of Dawn admired this old friend greatly. He felt like his friend's wavering had been a show of his resolve. Ice of Dawn could completely understand him. It wasn't that they weren't trying hard. It was that their opponent was too terrifying. Ice of Dawn couldn't help but think of his traumatic experience in that low-level dungeon and how hard he had worked. When Lord Grimm was in the 10th server, the guilds had watched him with great care. They had paid attention to Lord Grimm's movements. But when Lord Grimm stepped into the heavenly domain, their guild wasn't the only one watching. The entire heavenly domain was watching. He truly deserves to be called a god. Ice of Dawn thought. A god's heavenly challenge should be that eye-catching. Afterwards, he began playing tricks one after the other. Lord Grimm's fame had began in the 10th server to the heavenly domain all the way to the entire glory scene. Pro players began watching him. The media began reporting on him, calling him a mystery man or whatever. All sorts of guesses, information, rumors, and drama flew around. His fame seemed to have reached the entire world. It even seemed as if Blue Brook Guild had forgotten their original purpose for watching him. It'd be best to just keep watching like this. After Ice of Dawn looked through all these news reports, he even had this type of thought. Today, without any preparation, Lord Grimm suddenly popped out from a hole in front of him. Ice of Dawn. Ice of Dawn was startled. It seemed as if someone was calling his name. Haven't we met before? He heard the same voice continue. He knew who was talking. I've been to the 10th server before, Ice of Dawn replied. Yeah, I have a pretty good relationship with your Blue Brook Guild too. Would you like some help? Yi Shu asked. Ice of Dawn stared blankly. Let's ally with Excellent Dynasty and get rid of Herb Garden first, Yi Shu said. It was Herb Garden's turn to stare blankly. Following afterwards, the leader Mugwort laughed. You think everything will go as you say? Lord Grimm had already walked forward. Yi Shu shouted, Excellent Dynasty, stand with me. Didn't you hear the news? I'm Yi Chu. Chapter 462, To catch a band of thieves, catch the leader first. The first person to almost fall over hearing Yi Shu's words was Chen Guo. Her complicated and conflicting feelings instantly grew even further. However, as someone who had broken away from Excellent Era and as a fan of Yi Shu, Chen Guo was looking forward to what would happen next. She stared at Yi Shu's screen and even had the urge to grab Yi Shu's headphones. In-game, everyone on scene froze. Lord Grimm was Yi Chu. This was an issue that was still being debated, however, most views pointed towards this. As normal players, they might not have much authority to say anything, but they were free to choose whichever side they liked. To choose to believe or not to believe. Ice of Dawn was a believer. Thus, at that instant, his emotions surged. He quickly realized what these words entailed. This was as if Blue Rain's Yu Wenzhou or Huang Shaoshan appeared in front of them and told them to take down Herb Garden. Even if Ice of Dawn were alone, he wouldn't hesitate to jump into the flames and do as he was told. When these words came out, Mugwort's expression immediately changed. Of course, in the game, the others could only see his character and not his actual face. As for Excellent Dynasty's players, when Lord Grimm suddenly slid out from the hole, they were already in conflict. Was Lord Grimm really Yi Chu? This topic was without a doubt discussed the most intensely in Excellent Dynasty. The guild leader, Chen Yahui, saw this, but it wouldn't be easy to stop them. He could only send a few of his trusted subordinates and have them lead the direction of the discussion. He wasn't trying to prove that Lord Grimm wasn't Yi Chu, but rather to destroy Yi Chu's image among Excellent Era players. He had thought of doing this a long time ago, but he was always too afraid to do so. Up until now, using the club's public statements as a base, he used those as arguments to being carrying it out now. However, using this chance to tarnish Yi Chu's image in Excellent Dynasty had only just begun. There hadn't been any significant effects yet. Excellent Dynasty's players were still relying on their own judgment to make a decision. Some of them firmly believed that Lord Grimm was Yi Chu. Some didn't believe it, while some weren't sure. At this moment, Lord Grimm leapt out in front of them and yelled out an "I'm Yi Chu." Truthfully, if he really was Yi Chu, they weren't convinced that he would be so direct. This was because although Yi Chu was a god, he had never shown himself outside of the game. Fans knew very little about him. Otherwise, why would Chen Guo be so conflicted? She had her own thoughts on how this god would act, but his actions were inconsistent with her own thoughts, which was why she was conflicted. Excellent Dynasty's team leader Dreamland was one of the guild's core members. When Lord Grimm suddenly jumped out, claiming that he was Yi Chu, and then gave an order, for a moment, he was unsure of what to do. Dreamland had his own thoughts on whether or not Lord Grimm was Yi Chu though. But at this moment, he was leading the team for Excellent Dynasty. Even if Lord Grimm was Yi Chu, if he carried out his orders, he would be blindly following his idol and perhaps not working in the guild's interests. What were the guild's interests right now? It should be to first kill off Bluebrook Guild because Bluebrook Guild already had the damage dealt advantage on the Wilderness Escort. It didn't make sense to cooperate with them and put an end to Herb Garden, who was in a similar situation as them. Thinking of this, Dreamland immediately typed out a message in the team chat, ordering everyone to stay put for now. While he was typing out this message, a few Excellent Dynasty players had already started running towards Lord Grimm. When the message came out, they were suddenly at a loss again. Dreamland was having a huge headache. He immediately went to ask Chen Yahui for advice. Chen Yahui was also very startled when he received this message. Was Yi Chu finally using his identity as a weapon? Chen Yahui regretted that the person he had sent to lead the team wasn't his own trusted aide. However, since Dreamland was someone who had the power to lead a team, Chen Yahui also had a certain understanding towards him. This person understood the importance of working in the guilds and the team's benefits. At this moment, he probably had made his own decision already and didn't listen to Yi Chu's orders yet. Thinking of this, Chen Yahui relaxed a bit. As he replied to Dreamland, he reminded himself to cleanse those who held different views. Excellent Dynasty's core members had already tried to rope in as many non-Yichu fans as possible. In the beginning, Chen Yahui didn't think that they would make any difference because he hadn't thought Yichu would actually come to the game to fight with them. Facing this type of situation, he should have cleansed them all long ago. Chen Guo was upset. Why hadn't he done this earlier? Chen Yahui was very careful with his reply to Dreamland. Dreamland was currently neutral. If he directly talked bad about Yichu, it might have the opposite effect. Anyone could see Yichu's impact on Excellent Era's achievements. Making them flip sides with just a few words wouldn't be that easy. It wasn't a good idea to do it at this time either. In Chen Yahui's eyes, Dreamland wasn't a reckless, brain-dead fan. Thus, his following command was to let Dreamland weigh the situation and give priority to the guild's interests. Give priority to the guild's interests. In Dreamland's eyes, Lord Grimm's orders wouldn't be working in the guild's interests. Dreamland hadn't said anything the entire time. Besides the few in Excellent Dynasty who had slipped away in the beginning, no one else had moved. And once the ones who slipped away realized that their actions weren't aligned with their team, they immediately returned. From this, it could be seen that such discipline in a club guild was something that players' guilds made for fun didn't have. Was no one in Excellent Dynasty as fan of Yichu's? Seeing how some of them had run off, there were definitely fans. However, when Yishu blurted out an "I'm Yichu," some of them wavered. It was similar to how Chen Guo almost fell over. Yishu's actions didn't fit with their image of God, which was why they hesitated. The initial few saw that everyone wasn't moving, so they began to waver too. "Why isn't anyone moving?" Yishu said. Lord Grimm walked over as if he were going to stand with Excellent Dynasty. Dreamland wanted to say something, when Lord Grimm suddenly stopped. Dreamland was startled, when suddenly a shout could be heard. He turned his head. Lord Grimm was now amongst Herb Garden's troops. Shadow clone technique. What's going on? Dreamland was at a loss. Then, he saw Herb Garden's mugwort in the air. He wasn't doing this himself. Lord Grimm, who had suddenly moved next to him, had done it. How was this done? Dreamland didn't know. He hadn't seen it in time. When he turned over, all he saw was mugworts flying out as well as a bunch of shouts from Herb Garden's players as they surrounded him and began to attack. Take him down. Mugworts fell in Blue Brook Guild's territory. Ice of Dawn was also startled, but after hearing Yishu suddenly say, "Take him down," he suddenly woke up with a start and also shouted a, "Take him down." Blue Brook Guild's players immediately surrounded Mugworts. Mugworts might be a top player in the game, but there was no way he could fight against an entire group of experts. His quick recover had been done beautifully, but his hopes had already withered away. Too careless. He had seen that Dreamland wasn't siding with the self-proclaimed Yichu and was just about to tease him, but who would have thought he would suddenly sneak attack like that? Against a group of wolves, Mugworts only had half his heath left. He knew that he wouldn't be able to be saved. He could only turn his head hatefully and see the same result for Lord Grimm. The results were disappointing though. Yishu hadn't gone in on impulse. He had calculated everything beforehand. Before sending Mugworts flying away, he had already determined an escape route. When Mugworts looked back, Lord Grimm had already run away. Beautiful, Ice of Dawn praised. He ordered his subordinates to go to Lord Grimm's side to block the incoming Herb Garden players. To catch thieves, first catch the leader, Ice of Dawn laughed as Mugworts fell. On paper, the number of players on Herb Garden's side was about the same as Blue Brook Guild's, but without a leader, it would be a one-sided defeat. You're right. Ice of Dawn heard Lord Grimm give a praise as well. Afterwards, he discovered that he was suddenly in the air as well. What's going on? Ice of Dawn wasn't sure what happened. Did I press jump? Ice of Dawn looked down at his keyboard. His left hand was far away from the jump button. After that, he heard a ton of angry shouts. Didn't he just hear this sound before? It sounded very similar to when Lord Grim had been surrounded by Herb Garden's group. Take him down. Then, he heard another shout he had heard before. Ice of Dawn fell to the ground. He had even forgotten to use Quick Recover. When he looked up, he saw a bunch of Guild Excellent Dynasty tags. Ice of Dawn suddenly understood what had happened. He was just like Mugwort's. He struggled to adjust his camera, but he wasn't even able to do that. As a mage class with only cloth armor, he died even faster. There were now 2 teams without heads. Excellent Dynasty's players instantly understood what was going on. Kill, everyone shouted. But kill who? Who had they decided to kill? Chen Guo had her mouth wide open as she stared at Yi Shu. Yi Shu was as calm as ever. Chapter 463, Chapter 463. The dead Ice of Dawn didn't hurry and revive. He only wanted to cough up blood right now. Ally with Excellent Dynasty first and get rid of Herb Garden? It was true that Herb Garden's Mugwort had been the first to die, but right after that, he got killed. Why didn't you inform me beforehand? The sad Ice of Dawn became a ghost, floating around as he watched the following battle that ensued between the 3 guilds. Herb Garden's players pounced towards Blue Brook Guild. Blue Brook Guild's players charged at Excellent Dynasty. Originally, they had wanted to rescue their senior, but their seniors had died so quickly. There was no point in rescuing them, but the conflict had already erupted. But without anyone to lead them, Blue Brook Guild and Herb Garden didn't have any specific strategy in mind. They simply fought with revenge on their minds. As long as the person in front of them didn't have their guild's name, they would immediately attack. You really are too despicable. Chen Guo watched with wide eyes for a good half a minute before she blurted this out. Her voice didn't carry any hints of delight. The word despicable wasn't enough to describe her feelings. Especially after seeing Yishu open up Pandora's box and then immediately hide behind Guild Excellent Dynasty. Chen Guo had thought that after taking down the 2 guilds' heads, Yishu would also go and take down Excellent Dynasty's Dreamland. But he didn't. With this, Excellent Dynasty still had their leader and held the advantage. However, she didn't even have time to complain when she realized that this wasn't actually the case. The guild in the worst situation was Blue Brook Guild. The Wilderness Escort's aggro was still on them. After killing Mugworts, they had now aggroed Herb Garden as well. In addition, by attacking Excellent Dynasty, they established their aggro, too. Fighting against 3 enemies at once wasn't something that Blue Brook Guild had intended, but it was already too late to regret their decisions. After Blue Brook Guild, the guild in the second worst situation wasn't Herb Garden, but rather Excellent Dynasty. With Dreamland leading Excellent Dynasty, their formation was very stable. However, they couldn't keep up with the chaotic fighting. This was because Lord Grim had sent the 2 enemy seniors to their deaths at the start. It had been such a surprise that the 2 seniors weren't even able to leave behind any words before they were surrounded and killed. Lord Grim had established the greatest aggro. Herb Garden and Blue Brook Guild didn't have any specific strategy in mind and were attacking purely based off of emotions. The majority of them wanted to rush at Lord Grim and kill him. Of course, Lord Grim was now hiding behind Excellent Dynasty. Excellent Dynasty's players didn't stop him. This was because Lord Grim hadn't attacked their senior Dreamland, but had killed the other 2 guild seniors. It was obvious whose side Lord Grim was on. He really is Yi Chu. Excellent Dynasty's players grew excited. As a result, without any second thoughts, they protected Yi Chu's Lord Grim, stopping the incoming aggression. This was clearly another decision based off of emotions. Even though Excellent Dynasty's team had a leader at their head, they didn't have an appropriate strategy set either. From a strategical perspective, they weren't any different from Herb Garden and Blue Brook Guild. Something's not right. Excellent Dynasty's Dreamland quickly realized that the situation wasn't looking good. Although the heads of the other 2 guilds had fallen, Excellent Dynasty was now burdened with both guilds attacking them. Dreamland didn't know what to do in order to stabilize the situation. In terms of strategy, everyone was acting on impulse. In terms of tactics, even though Blue Brook Guild and Herb Garden didn't have anyone leading them, the groups were still in formation. In large-scale battles like these, teams were the unit of measurement and each team was made up of groups. each group would have a group leader. Right now, the two guild teams were only missing their team leader who coordinated the groups. However, each group still had their group leaders commanding. In other words, the two guilds were no longer whole entities, but they still had countless small entities battling. If it was just one-on-one, Excellent Dynasty would have certainly won because of their advantage as a whole. But with two guilds attacking them, there were too many small entities, leaving them with a numbers disadvantage, giving Dreamland even greater pressure. After all, he was just an expert in-game. His ability to lead wasn't at a pro level. If not, he might be able to beat the many with only a few. Pro level. Dreamland immediately thought of one person, who was at the top even among the pros. Dreamland turned around frantically and quickly found Lord Grimm's position. He was just sitting amidst their troops in the back and looked like he was just there to cheer them on. Dreamland was quite fast at weighing the situation. It could be said that Lord Grimm had created their current predicament, but right now he was in a safe spot outside the battle. In the area where the battle was taking place, players from the three guilds were rapidly falling. Was Lord Grimm really helping Excellent Dynasty, or did he have another motive? Dreamland didn't go and consider whether or not Lord Grimm was Yi Chu. He was only thinking about Lord Grimm's movements, and he suddenly felt uneasy. If Lord Grimm had truly wanted to help Excellent Dynasty, the amount of help he was giving them was far from enough. Uneasy, Dreamland retreated until he reached Lord Grimm. Soon afterwards, he sent an invite over to him. However, the system quickly notified him that Lord Grimm was already in a party. He was already in a party. This notification immediately aroused Dreamland's suspicions even further. "What are you trying to do?" Dreamland blurted out. "Picking up scraps." 3 simple words struck like thunder. Dreamland was immediately taken aback. Picking up scraps. As a person who frequently led teams, Dreamland obviously knew about this. Dreamland had a lot of experience with scrap pickers. But it was the first time Dreamland had encountered such a high-end scrap picker. Normal scrap pickers were more passive. They could only wait until a good opportunity appeared. But Lord Grimm, he wasn't waiting. He took the initiative to create the opportunity. This was completely raising the concept of scrap pickers to another level. Such a scrap picker was no longer just picking up items at his convenience. Just like I expected, Chen Guo slammed the table and shouted when she heard Yi Shu say, "Picking up scraps." She had noticed that after Lord Grimm killed the 2 seniors and escaped, Excellent Dynasty's situation wasn't looking good. She felt like Yi Shu wasn't helping any one guild. She had already made some guesses towards Yi Shu's plan, and Yi Shu had helped prove it to her. "You're really good at picking up scraps," Chen Guo said. "Of course. You have to work hard to pick up scraps, too," Yi Shu said. Chen Guo didn't know how to assess this. He said he was here to pick up scraps, and he really was going to. Plus, he was making such a big commotion for it. He really deserved to be called a glory textbook. He was a god even at scrap picking. Dreamland now knew the truth, but he didn't immediately attack Lord Grimm. For one, he didn't think that he was Lord Grimm's opponent. After all, Lord Grimm had rolled his way through level 70 players for the Heavenly Challenge. Secondly, Dreamland was still weighing the pros and cons. He could kill Lord Grimm, but it wouldn't stop him from suffering any less casualties. What made Dreamland's head hurt was still how he couldn't control the battlefield. With Lord Grimm's movements, not just Herb Garden and Blue Brook Guild, but even their Excellent Dynasty's players considered him as one of their own. His poisonous actions couldn't be cleared away with just a few words. By the time he finished speaking, everyone would already be dead. Dreamland didn't forget that they were there for the boss. With their current situation, how could they have any chance of killing the boss? The conflict with Blue Brook Guild and Herb Garden was completely pointless, and it was simply the perfect situation for the scrap pickers to do their dirty work. "Retreat," Dreamland ordered after thinking for a while. Excellent Dynasty's players were startled. "Retreat?" Quite a few questioned his order. How could we have any chance of killing the boss in this situation? Dreamland wouldn't mention scrap picking. He simply reminded them what their objective was. Everyone quickly woke up. They realized that their struggle had been completely pointless. Excellent Dynasty's players prepared to retreat, but Blue Brook Guild and Herb Garden continued to act on impulse. Seeing Excellent Dynasty retreat, they believed that they had the advantage and immediately began fighting even more intensely. Dreamland was very sad. By retreating, he boosted their opponent's morale. Blue Brook Guild and Herb Garden were missing a rational brain behind them right now. Not having a leader to guide them hurt Excellent Dynasty in the end. Dreamland didn't forget Lord Grimm. He was planning on making an ambush to send Lord Grimm to the enemy troops and have him experience Mugwort's and Ice of Dawn's fall. But when he looked over, he realized that Lord Grimm was extremely devilish. He had previously been sitting there watching the show, but now that the situation had changed, he began to move, not giving him any chance to do so. How are things going? How are things going? At this moment, Sparse Fragrance and the others were very anxious. Hearing the shouts and curses outside, they were feeling tormented. They had only just met Yi Shu. How could they have so much trust in him? Hearing how chaotic it seemed outside, they were doubting whether Yi Shu was intentionally not telling them any information and picking up scraps for himself before talking. Be careful when going out from the hole, Yi Shu replied. Got it. Sparse Fragrance and the others had been impatiently waiting for a while now and lined up to leave the hole. Sparse Fragrance was the first to come out. When he turned his camera around, he saw the chaotic fight outside and immediately turned elated. As an experienced scrap picker, Sparse Fragrance quickly discovered the valuable equipment scattered across the ground and hastily rushed over. And at this moment, a gray shadow suddenly rushed down from a rooftop on another side. Chapter 464, Deception. Sparse Fragrance glanced in the direction that gray shadow was heading towards and immediately knew that this shadow had the same goal as him, the equipment scattered on the ground. As a professional scrap picker, it wasn't his first time encountering this sort of scenario. Sparse Fragrance hastily used a triple slash and rapidly rushed his way over, moving faster than that gray shadow. Sparse Fragrance delightedly shifted his mouse to click on the equipment, when several people suddenly warned him in the party chat. Surprised, he saw his screen shake and his character flew away. Sparse Fragrance hastily turned his camera around to see how his enemy had sent him flying. However, he didn't get his answer. All he saw was the gray shadow land on the ground and toss the equipment into his bag. F***CK, Sparse Fragrance cursed. Quickly, he saw the name of the gray shadow who had snatched the equipment first, Deception. It's Deception. The others in the party chat shouted. You guys know him. Chen Guo had slipped out from the hole as well. Compared to these professional scrap pickers, she was clearly more reserved. She wasn't like Sparse Fragrance who eyed the scattered equipment and immediately pounced towards it like a hungry tiger. As the last one who came out, she had seen Sparse Fragrance get sent flying away. In the beginning, she didn't find anything special about the shadow, but after hearing everyone else shout his name, she looked over and noticed that besides his name, he didn't have a guild affiliation. This meant that he most definitely wasn't a part of one of the 3 guilds there. You've never heard of him? He's an extremely fierce scrap picker. The other party members introduced him to Chen Guo. Chen Guo was new to the scrap picking industry and had never paid attention to it. Hearing their tone, this person was probably a very famous character in their industry. How fierce? Chen Guo asked. Then, she saw Deception suddenly dash out. He lifted his ninja blade and shot out a blood arrow. Following afterwards, a person fell. This person seemed to have dropped something, but before anyone could see it clearly, Deception had already tossed it into his bag. What? Chen Guo wasn't able to wrap her head around what had just happened. But Deception didn't stop there. He wandered through the chaotic battle and wherever he roamed, the gold coins glinting on the ground as well as the equipment scattered around disappeared. Whenever he waved his hands, a blood arrow would shoot out and a player would die. Around 10 seconds later, the ground had become much cleaner. 4 people had already fallen to his ninja blade. They had been killed instantly without a trace. Not just Chen Guo, but even the people fighting in the battle had only just realized what was going on. And when they saw the ID on top of his head, the players of the 3 great guilds immediately focused their attention to him. As players who frequently participated in team activities such as killing bosses, they weren't a stranger to this name. Deception was a scrap picker who caused a headache to every guild team. This person wasn't in any guild, nor had anyone ever seen him in a team. He worked alone and came and went as he pleased. Compared to normal scrap pickers, this person had a goal. He wasn't like normal scrap pickers who would only look for dropped equipment. He would even look at the players fighting in the battle and kill them for their equipment. Deception wasn't just a scrap picker, he knew how to loot. The amount of damage this scrap picker had dealt to the guilds were even greater than normal scrap pickers. This was because he was an expert and was an expert at sneak attacks and one-hit kills. His outstanding looting and assassinations sometimes even changed the outcome of a battle. For example, a team might be killing a boss and although the battle was difficult, they could definitely beat it. But then Deception would arrive to pick up scraps and the equipment scattered on the ground wasn't enough for him. He would see that the equipment on the tank in the team looked good and would look for an opportunity to assassinate him. When the tank died, if the tank didn't drop the equipment Deception wanted, then he would shake his head and leave. But without a tank, how was the team supposed to take down the boss? In a scenario like this, how could he not be more troublesome than a normal scrap picker? Thus, after seeing the ID on top of his head, a barrage of attacks suddenly erupted. All sorts of skills flew towards him like a storm. Consequently, tragedy struck. The three teams of the three guilds weren't immune to each other's damage. When they attacked, they wouldn't hesitate to aim for others at the same time. After all, the teams were enemies of each other. If they could kill Deception as well as their other enemies simultaneously, it would be killing two birds with one stone. A wave of swordlight and artillery fire swept over the field. A huge hole appeared in the crowd. Corpses piled on top of each other on the ground and countless equipment glittered in the sun. Sparse Fragrance and the others began drooling. However, in an area that had just been under concentrated fire, even if they had another 10 of them, they wouldn't dare rush over to pick up equipment. Sparse Fragrance and the others were very depressed. Suddenly, in the empty space, a shadow broke through the earth. Deception had once again appeared in front of everyone. No one was able to respond in time as all of the equipment scattered among the pile of corpses was picked clean. Underground tunneling technique. Amazing. Chen Guo heard Yi Shu praise. Chen Guo obviously knew what the underground tunneling technique was. It was a level 35 ninja skill in which the user went below the ground to ambush the target. That was what the skill was supposed to be used for, but a person could use it creatively. Deception had used this skill to avoid the attacks. He quickly unleashed the skill, hid underground, and escaped from the storm. After jumping out from the ground, he immediately picked up all of the items. As a scrap picker, up until now, Deception had looted quite a few items. Even if he died and half of what he had picked up was dropped, he had already done an exceptional job. The people of the three great guilds were naturally extremely furious. Seeing Deception in the middle of the empty space, they immediately fired another storm of attacks and turned him into ashes. But no matter how fierce your attacks were, it wasn't possible to get such a result. Their attacks had only hit a shadow clone. Where was his real body? Everyone began searching for him. Here, someone shouted. Everyone once again saw another blood arrow fly forward. But when this person fell, his body didn't drop anything. The heavenly domain might have a high drop rate, but it wasn't guaranteed. Popper, seeing the players of the three great guilds pounce towards him, Deception actually complained and sent a sad face on top of his head. At the same time, he leapt up and swiped with his ninja blade and stuck into a wall. In the air, he bent his body and his two legs stepped onto the ninja blade. He jumped again and grabbed the ninja blade out from the wall back into his hands. This was one of the features of the ninja blade. The hilt had a long rope attached to it. By using the ninja blade as a foothold on a wall, the ninja could jump again. Then, using the rope, the ninja could take back the ninja blade. There was also the ninja blade's sheath, which was hollow. At certain moments, it could be used to stay airborne a bit longer. Ninja blades could be used by other classes too, but many of its functions could only be utilized by a ninja. In addition, many ninja skills required ninja blades as a weapon. This ninja is pretty good. After seeing Deception throw down a popper and flip over the wall, Yi Shu praised him again. The players of the three great guilds saw that Deception was about to leave with a whole bunch of items and weren't going to just give up like that. Any class which could go over the wall went over the wall. For this deception, the three great guilds suddenly allied together. Climbing the wall and looking around, he's not a part of my guild, let's just attack him. No leader. In the end, it came down to the two guilds not having a leader. Excellent Dynasty had won, but with the other two guilds fighting chaotically, Dreamland couldn't tell everyone to not resist, so everyone began fighting amongst each other again. What do we do? Chen Guo looked across the ground. There were still lots of equipment lying around. Pick up scraps, Yi Shu said. He had his Lord Grimm jump into the air. He raised his myriad manifestation umbrella above his head and with a click, the umbrella canopy was retracted. The joints connecting the 8 umbrella bones turned into 4 long ones. Shoo 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 as they rotated. Like a helicopter, Lord Grimm flew in Deception's direction. Where are you going? Chen Guo was surprised. All the good stuff has been taken away by that guy. I'm going to go take them back, Yi Shu said. You call that looting? That's called dropping, Chen Guo said. Yeah, I'm learning from him, Yi Shu replied. Chen Guo thought about it. It was true. Deception wasn't a scrap picker who simply picked up equipment. He would even take the initiative to make a move. It hadn't even been a minute yet and he had already killed several players from the three great guilds. I'm going too. Chen Guo wasn't that interested in picking up scraps and felt like Yi Shu chasing after that guy would be more interesting. She hastily headed over towards where Yi Shu was moving. Be careful. That guy isn't so simple, Yi Shu said. I can see that, Chen Guo said. To make these players from the three great guilds to go into a rage like that clearly indicated how extraordinary he was. It hadn't yet been a minute since he arrived, and although the three great guilds were a bit in a mess with 2 of the guilds not even having a leader, to be able to accomplish such a feat showed how he wasn't any normal expert. It was more obvious when one compared him to Sparse Fragrance's group. They were in a group of 5, yet they didn't dare jump into the fray. They were all very careful with every step they took and ran over when they saw a good opportunity. How could that even be compared to the uproar Deception had created? Chen Guo now understood that even for something despicable like scrap picking, different players had different styles. Who exactly was this Deception? Chen Guo wondered. She knew that Sparse Fragrance's group might know, but she reckoned that they didn't have time to answer her. She also had to hurry up and move too, so she didn't have any time to ask either. Thus, she called for Tang Ru. Little Tang, could you help me look up someone using these 3 keywords, glory, scrap picker, deception? Chapter 465, Pursuit. Tang Ru wasn't too busy, so when she heard Chen Guo's request, she immediately looked it up. Glory, scrap picker, deception. Apart from the first search term, Tang Ru had trouble getting the other 2 terms correct. Point 1 Finally, she got the information she wanted and read it out loud. Not just Chen Guo, Yi Shu also straightened up to listen. Unfortunately, the results didn't really give them any new information. A lone operator, a ruthless scrap picker. The information on him could be summarized with these 2 phrases. Most of the comments were angry complaints and curses from players who had their equipment stolen by him. Besides that, a few people thought Deception had an interesting personality and wrote some random romantic fanfiction stories of him. Tang Ru hadn't even read the first sentence, when Chen Guo stopped her. It's just a bunch of random nonsense, Chen Guo remarked. Ha ha, how mysterious, Yi Shu commented. Can we catch him? Chen Guo had almost reached the coordinates Yi Shu had given her. She could even see Lord Grimm now, but she couldn't see Deception. Of course. That guy has so much stuff on him. How fast could he run? Yi Shu smiled. But I don't see him. Do you know where he is? Chen Guo looked towards Yi Shu's screen. There was no sign of Deception there either. Yi Shu's movements were extremely quick. He had chased Deception right after he jumped over the wall. Chen Guo had been closely watching Yi Shu's screen the entire time, but Yi Shu had never seen him. He's close, Yi Shu was certain. Lord Grimm also stopped. How do you know? Chen Guo was still heading over. Based on his movement speed, he won't be able to escape from my field of view, Yi Shu said confidently. His camera kept on turning, observing his surroundings. So you're saying he's hiding? Chen Guo asked. Yeah. We have to hurry and find him, Yi Shu said. What's the hurry? He'll be out of combat soon. If he logs out, what can we do? Yi Shu said. Oh, Chen Guo immediately understood. In Glory, you couldn't log out while in battle. Turning off the power or forcefully quitting could still be done, but your character would simply sit in the game for a while and you would naturally be turned into paste. Because of this, it would be better to hide and wait until you were out of combat before logging off. There wasn't any problems with doing that. Where could he be hiding? Chen Guo had arrived and she looked around as well. The streets were empty. Yi Shu could also see what was above on the rooftops from his position and there wasn't anyone there. The only possibility left was that he was hiding in a room somewhere. This was what made town maps troublesome. There were too many places to hide. When Chen Guo fought in these maps, she really didn't like playing a game of cat and mouse. 257, 186's room. Go check it out. Yi Shu looked around and then suddenly spoke. Chen Guo looked in that direction. There's no noise, which means there aren't any monsters there. From the looks of it, he's probably in somewhere in that direction, Yi Shu said. Are you afraid of startling a snake in the grass? Chen Guo asked. Not at all, Yi Shu said. Okay, Chen Guo said. Chasing Haze immediately rushed towards it as she fired her cannon. Chen Guo didn't dare be careless. Deception wasn't any ordinary expert. Careful, Yi Shu suddenly warned as Chen Guo charged forward. Chen Guo was an experienced player too. No matter the danger, it was a good option to immediately roll. She chose a random direction to roll in and just as she was about to ask what was going on, Chasing Haze was suddenly launched into the air. Deception had popped out of the ground from underneath her. Underground tunneling technique. Chen Guo immediately understood. Her random roll wasn't able to dodge his sneak attack. Remembering how everyone who Deception had acted against died, she started getting a bit nervous. But the damage done by the underground tunneling technique wasn't anything to worry about. There's no need to be afraid. Chen Guo muttered. After playing Glory for so many years, she had a good amount of experience with every class. She was able to tell from the damage taken that Deception's attack power might not even be as good as Chasing Haze's. Thinking of this, she became more confident. She prepared to launch a counterattack and give him a good beating, but even if Deception's attack power wasn't good, his movements were extremely quick. Chasing Haze had only just been launched into the air by the underground tunneling technique. Deception turned his back on her and threw his two hands back. Chen Guo immediately recognized this pose. It was the ninja skill, neck bind technique. Chen Guo didn't think that Deception would be able to use a neck bind technique so quickly. She had originally been planning on counterattack, but now her only thought was to hurry up and widen the distance between them. However, she was too slow. The rope on the ninja blade wrapped around Chasing Haze's neck. With a pull on the rope, Deception dragged Chasing Haze down and she crashed into the ground. The damage wasn't very high, but Chen Guo was able to tell their difference in skill from this combo. But Chen Guo wasn't someone who was afraid. After suffering 2 attacks, she began to get annoyed and thoughts of fighting back with all she had begun to rise up in her mind. Neck bind technique was a grab skill and couldn't be quick recovered. However, Deception didn't seize the opportunity to follow up with another attack. Instead, he turned around and began to run. Chen Guo immediately had Chasing Haze get up. She lifted her cannon onto her shoulder and was just about to fire it, when she saw a black light shoot towards. A whoosh and Chasing Haze was stunned. A blood spurted out from her head. Deception had seen Chasing Haze get up and attacked with a shuriken, which hit Chasing Haze's head. Shuriken was a level 5 ninja skill. It wouldn't do much damage, but targets hit by one would be stunned. Chasing Haze was hit and as a result, wasn't able to attack. Her body froze as she watched Deception run away. I am going to kill him, Chen Guo roared. She wasn't like Tang Ru, who would express her feeling with her actions. Whenever Chen Guo got angry, she would use her mouth to express her feelings. Kill who? Tang Ru heard that things were getting exciting. She took off her headphones and ran over to watch. Don't worry. I'm here. Yi Shu's Lord Grimm was on the side. He wasn't just waiting there doing nothing. It was just that the exchange between Chen Guo and Deception had been too quick. From the underground tunneling technique to the neckbind technique to the shuriken, it had only been a short amount of time. Chen Guo heard Yi Shu speak and then saw as his Lord Grimm descend from a rooftop, cutting off Deception's escape route. In midair, he unsheathed his sword and swung down in a beautiful arc. Deception reacted quickly and immediately stopped. The blade light fell one step behind Deception. "God, your aim sucks," Chen Guo remarked after seeing Yi Shu miss. "Are you stupid? This is called a prediction," Yi Shu said. "Predict what?" Chen Guo asked. "He predicted my attack and dodged it. This guy has some skill," Yi Shu said. Lord Grimm had already landed on the ground. He stood in front of Deception, blocking his path. Deception wasn't just going to stand there stupidly. After dodging the sword draw, he immediately ran diagonally. Seeing Lord Grimm blocking him, he threw shurikens. Instead of just a single one, he threw 3 of them. This could be considered a hidden attribute for shurikens. More than one shuriken could be thrown at a time. In theory, it was similar to the Blade Master's Shadow Steps, which relied on the player to use its full potential. Deception threw the 3 in a triangular formation and the angle was quite good. But with Yi Shu's skill, 3 shurikens was nothing to him. He didn't stop moving and just before the shurikens hit him, he used a Z-shake, twisting in between the gap within the triangular formation. Deception had clearly been a bit overconfident. He thought that the 3 shurikens would be enough for him to safely pass by him, but who would have thought that his opponent would go right through them? It was only until Lord Grimm's myriad manifestation umbrella transformed into a priest's sickle did Deception realize what had happened. His reactions were quick though. Deception rolled backwards and Lord Grimm's sickle missed. Deception leapt up and turned around in midair. He raised his 2 hands towards his head and formed a hand seal. "Flame cut," Yi Shu laughed. Deception was truly alarmed when he heard this. Ninjas were a physical and magic hybrid class. One unique aspect of their class was that when ninjas cast skills, they didn't need to wait for the cast to finish before using the skill like an elementalist. For ninjas, in order to use a skill, it required a certain set of movements and these were hand seals. The faster the player's hands, the faster the hand seals would be completed, and the faster the cast time. The cast speed depended on the player, which was something elementalists didn't have. Deception was clearly very familiar with his hand seals. His hands moved in a blur. Even he couldn't see the seals clearly. Who would have thought that his opponent would be able to see through his skill from these hand seals? However, since things had already gotten to this step, should he cancel his skill? Deception didn't overthink it and immediately unsheathed his blade. The ninja blade swung in a blazing arc towards Lord Grimm.